Hey there. Thanks for being with us. So, do you agree with this? That sometimes what you hear people saying and what you pick up from their body language are like totally different, right? Have you been in a meeting or a conversation with your husband or wife, and it's like their body language is just like screaming louder than their words? Or have you been, sitting in the doctor's office talking to the doctor about your child, and there's like some disconnect between what the doctor is saying and what you're really picking up from that person? Well, if these kinds of things have happened, you are in the right place, because today we're going to be talking about, and I have these special things, we're going to be talking about how to read minds using your eyes. Now, you don't need these special googly glasses to do that, but sometimes it helps see things more clearly. I don't know. But today, like I said, is going to be exciting, because not only are we going to be talking about what you can do when you notice things about their body language, either in an IEP meeting or in another situation, and then how you can react. But we'll also be giving you a few more details about our 5-day challenge that's coming up. We have an IEP scavenger hunt that we're going to be starting later this month. So I'll be giving you some more details on that. The other thing that we'll be talking about in our show today is what to do when people roll their eyes at you. I don't know about you, but this is like a major button that pushes if somebody's rolling their eyes, especially at IEP meetings. So at the end of the show, we're going to be talking about what do you do? What do you do? What do you say? How do you react when people are rolling their eyes at IEP meetings? So we're going to jump into some specific strategies. But before I do that, I wanted to just remind people, if you don't have a copy of my book yet, it's called The Art of Advocacy, a Parent's Guide to a Collaborative IEP Process. And in my book, in chapter 3, there's a whole chapter in here about listening with your eyes and trying to understand other people's body language, and like I said, how you can react to it in positive ways. So make sure you can pick up a copy of this on Amazon. The Kindle book is 99 cents, or you can also buy the paperback book. But we're going to start with some specific things that you might notice when you're in a meeting. And these are some techniques that people that have researched body language suggest that you do. So the first one is to copy the other person's body language. And this is so as you copy their body language, the idea is that you can start tapping into those feelings and emotions that that person has. So this is like a really interesting technique. I so many times I forget to use this, but when I've done it, it's like magical. It's like really interesting, because like I said, no matter what kinds of, gestures or how they're sitting, if you just tap into that, copy what they're doing for a few minutes, you get a better understanding of where they're feeling. And that really makes a difference, because when we're in things like IEP or 504 meetings, we want to really get down to that level of how people are feeling about things versus just the words that are coming out of their mouth. So the other thing I wanted to mention is we're on Be Live TV. So what is so cool about this is that when you comment, I can bring your comments actually up onto the screen for our live show. So if you're watching us live today, type in hi, maybe where you're watching from, and we can try this new magic tool of bringing your comments up. So our next tip or strategy that we're going to talk about is for us to remember that the signals that you send also influence how people see you. I think so many times when we think about body language, it's like, oh, you know, we want to learn how to read other people's body language. But the other side of that coin is that people are going to be looking at us and people are going to be making judgments on our body language. So when we come into the IEP meeting and, you know, if we sit down at the table and kind of plop our stuff down with a huff, you know, and cross our arms, it's like, yeah, just try to make me agree with anything today. People are going to pick up on that, and that sets the tone for the meeting. So really be aware of what your body language is signaling to people, and try as much as you can to start that meeting on a positive tone that's going to be more open. And we'll talk about some specific things that you can do that will show the openness and that the, you know, the willingness to collaborate, because that's when we get more things done for our kids. And our third strategy is to watch the facial expressions, the tone of their voice, the gestures that they make, and then, you know, specific body language cues. So it's not just what they're doing with their body, but like I gave in that example of, like, if you come into the IEP meeting and you throw your stuff down on the table and kind of, you know, make this sound, all of those things put together are going to be signaling the other people in the meeting how you're feeling. And so when you're looking at people, don't just look at, you know, obvious kind of body language cues, but listen to the tone of the voice. Look at what kinds of gestures that they're using. You know, are they pointing their finger and, you know, kind of being in this controlling, powerful kind of position? All of those things put together can help you figure out where this person is coming from, and then how you can react to them. So what we're going to do next is to look at some specific things that you might see. So let me bring this up here. Oops. So now I've got to go, because now it's like on a different camera. So we'll just have to figure this out. Sorry for this little glitch. But the things that you might see is that somebody might have their eyebrow raised or tilt their head. And I want to make sure, can you guys still hear me? Because I got disconnected here, so I'm not sure if the sound is still going. So if somebody is with us live, if they can show us if they're still hearing the broadcast. Let me see if I can hear anything. Yes, I can. Okay, we're back on schedule. So Patty Wood is an author of this book that's really interesting. It's called Snap, Making the Most of First Impressions, Body Language, and Charisma. And what she says is if you see people with that one, raised eyebrow and their head is kind of tilted, that oftentimes this means that the person may not be as honest as you would like, or what they're saying doesn't really match with how they're feeling. So if you notice this, it would be great to ask some clarifying questions and try to get to understand what the other person is really feeling. So another thing that you might see is somebody staring up at the ceiling and blinking a lot. And this I thought was interesting. I guess I don't necessarily notice when people are blinking that much, but this is kind of a reoccurring signal that a lot of body language experts talk about. But if you see somebody staring up at the ceiling and blinking, it might mean that they're thinking about a point that you just made or a point that was just made in the meeting. So if you see somebody doing this, if they're staring, if they're blinking, what you want to do is now see I'm on a different camera here. What you want to do is stop talking. Give that person some wait time. Give that person some thinking time. Because as you know, when you're at IEP meetings, trying to get agreement, trying to come to a consensus on different things can be really challenging. But if you're at a point where the special ed teacher or the special ed director is thinking about something, they're maybe looking up, there might be blinking, give them time to think through things. Don't just keep talking. Now, the other thing that's really important is just because you see somebody do one thing doesn't necessarily mean you can jump to conclusions. They're looking at the ceiling. They must be thinking about something. Well, often you have to look at a combination of things. So not only what you see, but what you hear as far as, the tone of their voice and their gestures. So don't rely on one thing, but these are kind of, kind of generic clues or tips that you can pick up on as far as body language goes. So the next one, let's see if this one is going up here. And I want to talk about clasping hands behind your back. So if you notice somebody is doing this, this can be a symbol of confidence, power, or authority. And you may want to try this posture when you're feeling confident or when you're about to walk into the IEP meeting and you see the special ed director standing outside and he or she's got their arms behind their back and they're just kind of standing there, relaxed, waiting to go into the meeting. Well, this could be a sign of boy, they're feeling pretty confident. This could be a time where you copy that. So you also would put your hands behind your back and you would show that you're equally confident, that you're equally, ready for this meeting and you're a partner ready to go at it. So this would be a time where copying the other person's body language might be really helpful. So let's look at our next body signal. And I don't think I see any comments, but remember guys, if you've got comments, to type them in the comment box and I can bring them up onto the screen. And so then the next one that we're going to talk about is when someone has open palms, so their hands are open or their palms of their hands are facing upward. And this can mean that the person is really being honest and that they're willing to cooperate. So when you notice this, you may be close to making an agreement. So don't bring up any points at this time that the other person might not agree with, because you want to get agreement whenever you can, right? So that's like super important, because I think so many times, we have maybe a whole long list of things that we want to achieve at the IEP meeting. But if we can break that down, and if we can get small agreements bit by bit, that can be more helpful than, trying to get everything at once. So when you see somebody with their palms open, maybe extended out towards you, know that that's a signal that they're ready to cooperate and to come up with some collaborative ideas. So take advantage of that situation, right? Because sometimes it doesn't happen that often. The next example that we're going to look at is when people have their fingers together with their hands pointing upward. Now, this can suggest that they're thinking, that they're making connections with what's been discussed, that they're examining the facts. Again, if you see somebody making this kind of a gesture during a meeting, might mean they're praying, right? But it could mean that, they're just doing some more think time. So again, pause, stop talking. Give them a chance to process what's been going on in the conversation. And again, this can be a time where you might be a signal that you're close to agreement. So again, you don't want to keep blabbing on and on and on. Just wait and let them think and process. And hopefully the next thing will be, let's figure out how we can do this together, right? So that's the kind of cooperation that we want. Now, here's an example of something when things aren't going well. It's when somebody has their hands really clenched. And I need to be totally transparent with you, because I sometimes, especially when I was first going live on these Facebook live shows about 40 some weeks ago, I would just get so nervous that I would just clench my hands. I would try to keep them down low so you wouldn't see on camera. And I forget which camera I'm looking at here, but that clenched fist can mean anxiety. It can mean, it can mean anger. It can mean I'm just trying to hold this in, because if I don't, I feel like I'm going to explode. I know when I was at a mediation meeting and we got a proposal from the school district, and it was just so ridiculous. I mean, it just showed that the district had no concept on what this child needed. I was so angry, and I knew I couldn't explode during mediation, but I wanted to have that conversation. But I just remember just sitting there with my hands clenched and, just can I hold my emotions in? And can I express what we're feeling and the disappointment that we have with what the district proposal was, but not to totally explode. So if you notice people are clenching their hands and that's probably a good time to call for a break. So even though you might have a certain amount of time allotted for your IEP meeting, it's like if things aren't going well, if emotions are really running high, then that's a time that you do need to take a breather. So that would be something that you could look at. Now, the other thing is, now this one I hadn't heard of before, and I thought this is like really interesting. It's when you see, you know, if there's a woman special ed director or teacher in your IEP meeting and they're touching their jewelry or, you know, kind of fiddling with their earrings. Now, some of the body language people say this might be a sign of fear and nervousness, and that the person might be afraid of, you know, they're going to be attacked. And I don't know. I mean, I think this is one of those cases where you can't just say, oh, look, she's touching her necklace. She must be afraid. She must be worried I'm going to attack her. Because sometimes I think I will fiddle with my earrings and it might mean I'm bored or, you know, let's move this along. So again, just because you see a person do one thing as far as a body language signal, don't just jump to conclusions and make the assumption that this is exactly what it means. You've got to look for that combination of things. So the other thing I wanted to share was another example of just how your body language sets the tone of the meeting. I was at a meeting, an IEP meeting with a new family. The dad insisted on standing up the whole time during the IEP meeting. And so that was like really different. I mean, I've never had anybody in an IEP meeting that wouldn't actually just sit down at the table. So the other thing that was a factor, not only was he standing up the whole time, but he was a sergeant in the Army. He had his uniform on. He was a pretty muscular person. So it was just this kind of a feeling of domination, but also this feeling of, I am like so angry, I can't even sit down and have a conversation with you. And so obviously when somebody is feeling that way at an IEP meeting, it's really hard to have any, you know, back and forth communication, try to, you know, rebuild trust. So what we did is we just pretty much said, you know, I think it might be good to reschedule this. After a while, we kept going and the dad kept insisting on standing up. And what I did after that meeting was talk to the parents. I knew that dad was really frustrated and really angry about how his child was being treated. But we talked about how that's not going to help us move forward. So what I did is I just set up a meeting with the parents, myself, and the special ed director. And we scheduled it for a few days later so people would kind of be calmer. And it was like so wonderful because in that small setting, one, the dad sat down at the table, so that made me feel good. And we had it in a neutral location. It wasn't in the school building. It wasn't at the, you know, special ed director's office, but it was actually at a place near the dad's work, so he would feel more comfortable. But we just sat down and we talked and we got to those underlying issues that had been bothering the parents so much. And it was like such a breakthrough. It was like just amazing. So then when we had the continuation of the IEP meeting that next week, I was like so happy. The dad came in, he sat right down at the table, and we were able to talk things through. We were able to come up with some out-of-the-box kinds of ideas of how their son could be supported at school, and it was a win-win for everybody. So when you notice behavior in yourself or in other people, just be sensitive to that and know that that is communicating something to you. Not only their words, but through their body language, they're communicating things to you. And you need to be able to pick up on that and kind of be flexible and go with the flow. And so I also, before we talk about what to do when people roll their eyes at you, because that's like one of my number one like buttons that people push, is I wanted just to give you a quick update and some more information, because I've been posting on my page about this IEP scavenger hunt, which is, oh look, we have some, oh good, look at, so this is my friend from Connecticut, and he says, thank you for sharing with us. It's really helpful. Yay! So I'm glad you're here with us. This is an awesome parent, like I said, from Connecticut, and they have a wonderful daughter who both mom and dad have just been excellent advocates, and I think things are going pretty well. So thanks for being here. That's awesome. And you might want to join our IEP scavenger hunt that's coming up. This is going to be a fun 5-day challenge. It's going to be starting at the end of July. And each day you're going to be looking through your child's IEP to find things, certain things, but one of the things that you're going to also be doing is figuring out what's missing from your child's IEP. Not only what you find in the IEP is important, but sometimes what's missing from the IEP is even more important. It even tells you more. So before the new school year starts, I thought it would be great. We'll have some fun. We'll go on an IEP scavenger hunt. Each day for the 5-day challenge, I'll give you a specific thing for you to be looking for in your child's IEP. We'll be having a private membership-only group for everybody in the scavenger hunt, and we'll be doing a live Facebook show in that private group each day. And we'll be sharing ideas and tips and helping each other. What I'm really looking forward to is, with it being a private group, you guys can post directly into the Facebook group, and we can be sharing and supporting each other. And then Friday, the 5th day of the challenge at the end of this month, we'll have this awesome masterclass where I just give you like tons of inside secrets that I've figured out over the years of being a special ed advocate. So I hope you'll be signing up for our scavenger hunt. Right now, I'm just kind of giving people information about it, but keep your eye on our business page, which is Visions and Voices Together. And I'll be sharing you the exact details. What I'm looking at right now is that we would start the challenge on July 31st and end it on that Friday with our awesome masterclass. And I know if Selena's here, I'll give a shout out to Selena, because she's a parent that is like so super excited about going on this IEP scavenger hunt. So stay tuned to that. Now, let's get back to our regular program. And we're going to be finishing up our show by talking about, what do you do when somebody is rolling their eyes at you during the meeting? This is, like I said, this is something that is kind of like my number one pet peeve. But what I've learned to do, instead of just being kind of upset when I see those rolling eyes, is I just address it directly. And that's kind of the person that I am. It's like, I'm not going to hide and pretend like this didn't happen. So when I notice somebody rolling eyes when the parent's talking or when I'm talking, is I'll just stop for a second and I'll say, directly, I'll say, I notice that, through your facial expressions, that it seems like you might be frustrated or you might be confused about something. So can you tell us more? Can you help us understand what that means? And then I wait for the person to respond. Now, if they deny it and it's like, I don't know what you're talking about, I'm just fine, I'm not going to argue with them. Because I've already pointed out to them that I've seen it, that I kind of have, made some determinations about what they might be feeling. And usually by calling them out on it in a polite way, but an assertive way, it usually stops that kind of behavior. So I don't know, do you have tips? Like, what do you do if you're sitting in the IEP meeting and you see somebody rolling their eyes when you're making comments? How do you react to that? So type it in the comments. Even if you're listening to this on the replay, I'll come back and reply to your questions or comments. And, what I'm hoping for is that as we do these Facebook Live shows, that more people will be more interactive, because it's not just the ideas that I have, but all of you as experienced parents and advocates for your kids, you have valuable tips and strategies. So I hope that, like I said, even if you watch this on the replay, that you'll make some comments in the posts and that we can all be learning from each other. So next week, next Thursday, I'm going to be driving to Sacramento for the National Down Syndrome Congress Convention. I'm going to be doing a breakout session on Sunday at the conference, and I'm very excited about that. Well, I'm on the road Thursday. That's our usual day for our Facebook Live shows. So I'm hoping at noon Mountain Time, wherever I'm driving in Nevada or California or someplace, that I'll have cell phone reception and that I'll be on next Thursday at noon Mountain Time. And then Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of next week is the National Down Syndrome Congress, their conference. And so I'm hoping to interview other parents. I want to interview self-advocates out there attending, and also some of the speakers. So if you're going to that conference in Sacramento, make sure that we connect and see each other. If not, look for some just impromptu Facebook Live shows during Friday, Saturday, Sunday of next week when I'm at that conference. And until we see you next Thursday, make sure that you just keep on keeping on, because your child is depending on you, right? I'm Charlene Tanner. I'm a special ed advocate, and I hope to share the journey with you so we can make sure that your child gets the education that they deserve, right? So until next Thursday, take care.